Welcome back to the discernment, Francis, and our discernment. Today we are back in ordinary time. We have spent the last number of weeks celebrating Jesus' presence with us through the Nativity, through the Epiphany, through the angels and the shepherds, and his baptism. And ordinary time actually is nothing ordinary, except it is about everyday real life that Jesus walks with us. So we continue with how Jesus inspired Francis in his vocation and how Jesus continues to inspire us through Francis. So the last time we looked at how Francis had to deal with knowing that God had a path for him, but he didn't know what it was or what it was supposed to look like and how to move forward. So, like us, he had to wait, to pray, to continue living his life in ordinary time, in the midst of uncertainty, trusting that God was somehow guiding him. G.K. Chesterton writes that it was while he was drifting about the streets of Assisi and in the fields outside the city wall that an incident occurred to him. He was on his horse out in the fields and riding rather listlessly and saw a figure coming toward him, a figure that was white and thin and ugly and glared at him through the shadows. He instantly recognized this was a person with leprosy. Now, Francis had an abhorrent fear of lepers. I think it was because of his ego. He took great pride in his appearance and in his popularity and his association with others. And lepers were despised and shut out and not even able to enter into the village or the city. He knew instantly that his courage was challenged, not as the world challenges, but as one would challenge who knew the secrets of the heart of a person. Francis saw his fear coming up on the road toward him. The fear that comes from within, not without. This leper wasn't threatening his life, but it was threatening his heart. He stood white and horrible. The fear paralyzed him. Then he got the inspiration, the motivation, the Holy Spirit inspired him to spring from his horse, rush to the leper, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. It was the beginning of his conversion. It was the beginning of a long ministry among the lepers. This incident opened him up to his direction in life. This man with disease, who he feared, he gave the money he had. He got back on his horse and rode away. St. Bonaventure says he rode just a short distance, stopped, and looked around, and there was no one there. We know who the leper was. The action of Francis comes from the depth of God in his heart. He allowed the Holy Spirit to give him the courage to face what brought him fear. His heart took over instead of the fear in his mind. He saw the leper not as a threat, but as a person in need of compassion. But how do we face our fears, our anxieties, our depression, our prejudices, all the feelings that are very real in our lives? How do we allow the Holy Spirit to help us with these difficulties? The fires, losing everything, the political unrest and uncertainty. How do we deal with this? How do these fears of being out of control consume us? What do we do with them? A wonderful, wise Franciscan friar has helped me to face my fears in giving me a prayer, a brief phrase to pray. God help me be gentle with my anxious self, or my fearful self, or my irritated self. Or God help me with my feeling of depression, with my angry self. Whatever feeling is present, this small, short phrase, God, help me be gentle with my anxious self, my fearful self. He has encouraged me to say this prayer as many times as I need to again find inner peace. And it works because the prayer recognizes that I am more than this feeling, that there is more about me that is in control of my life than this feeling, and that God is part of all the aspects of my life, not just the feeling of fear or irritation or prejudice or depression or lack of control, that God has given me the freedom and the gift of recognizing that there are many parts of me. And this frees me from allowing the fear to take over. Notice that this prayer is not asking God to take away the anger, to take away the irritation, to take away the fear, to take away the prejudice. It is asking God to help me embrace myself as I am and what I am feeling, because that is what God does for us at every moment. God embraces each of us as we are in this moment. He doesn't say, well, once you get rid of that prejudice, once you get rid of that vice, once you get rid of that fear, then I'll be there for you. No, God embraces us as we are and walks with us in the present. May St. Francis inspire us to face whatever fear is present in our lives today, so that we can become more free to accept the embrace of the Father and discover how he is leading us. God bless you.